Welcome to Frankly Festivals, the podcast that explores the world of film events and filmmakers in an attempt to demystify each other's pressures and interests and to foster greater cooperation, understanding, and a stronger industry. I'm John Gann.
And I'm Bart Weiss.
So last episode, we tackled tech issues and addressed projection and sound and film trafficking. It was a great episode with some great guests. Okay, so for this episode, we're going to explore key staff positions, people who make a festival happen. Some of these positions are year-round and shape a festival's mission all the time, while others come on for a shorter period of time, but whose contributions are immeasurable. There's so many people that make up a festival. It's not just an executive director or a programmer, and I think this is going to be a great conversation.
It's also good when you go to a festival as a filmmaker, just to know who the people are and what they do and what you can expect for them and what you can expect for them.
And of course, really small events might not have all of the staff, and very big events probably have lots of the staff. But I think these are key positions that really give you an idea of some of the intricacies of what it is to manage a festival, and one of them at least gives you an opportunity to join in and participate in a festival.
And I think the other thing that's really great about this episode, which is what we talk about in this whole podcast, is demystifying what happens on the other side of the table. When you go to a festival, there's a film playing and there's a whole army of people that have been doing things, and now you know what they do and you understand them a little better, both as an audience member and as a filmmaker. Your relationship to that festival is richer because you know what's going on.
And that's exactly it. But before we start that conversation, I know you just got back from South by Southwest. What happened?
Well, I got COVID, but
this is unfortunately what happens with every large event now. You go and it's just a matter of, are you going to be one of the 40% that gets COVID?
I had a really great time. Lines were all over the place. People were enjoying films. The Q&As, I did several, and they were really uplifting and very powerful. And South by Southwest is back. It's strong. The audiences are there. The filmmakers are there. The parties were awesome. It was a great experience.
Good. I'm glad, because the first few years after COVID, it was a little weak and it was a different experience. So now that you're saying that it's back is really good, and really it shows that this industry has bounced back as much as it can. So now on to the main discussion, the deep dive into some really important jobs at a festival that a lot of people, especially filmmakers, have no idea what these people do. And now we're going to demystify that. So we're going to start off with the incomparable Beth Barrett. She's the artistic director for SIFF, the Seattle International Film Festival. Beth has been with SIFF since 2003, so over 20 years, and is responsible for managing the artistic vision of SIFF, including all aspects of programming for the Seattle International Film Festival, SIFF Cinema's year-round screens, and the SIFF Education team. Beth currently serves on the City of Seattle Film Commission and the board of the Art House Convergence, and has served on juries and panels from Palm Springs to Park City. Beth was also on the board of the Film Festival Alliance. I've known her for 20 years. She is an incredible force in the festival world. So it's so good to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for those nice words.
Our second guest is Paul SLOOP. Paul has been the lead programmer of short films for Oscar-qualifying Cleveland International Film Festival since 2003. Boy, that's a long time. He is also the director of programming at Film Pittsburgh and director of programming at the Cordillera International Film Festival. Two of Paul's three festivals, Cleveland and Cordillera, have made Movie Makers magazine's 25 coolest film festivals in the world over the last two editions, with Cordillera making it in both years. Fun fact, Paul has 8 kids, 7 girls and only 1 boy. Wow, that's an interesting house with lots of chaos.
It is indeed. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Third, we have Blair Hunt. Blair has amassed extensive experience in large-scale event management, contributing notably to festivals like Napa Valley, Sonoma Film Festival, Mill Valley Film Festival, and Sundance. Her roles have included producing events, securing talent, and serving in directorial capacities. Recently, she joined the Round Top Film Festival as the inaugural festival director. And I have worked with Blair for quite a while on lots of things, including when I had a film in Sonoma 2 years ago. So she's fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk with everyone.
Last but certainly not least, Eileen Level. Eileen Level is a champion of cinema going experience, having launched PAL FO Cinema, which seeks to look forward to the evolution of Cinescape experience. She's held the title of Head of Education at the New York International Children's Film Festival. She has worked for John as a volunteer coordinator at the AFI Docs for its final 3 years. Eileen has also spoken at South by Southwest and anywhere else that will have her about her journey as a budding exhibitor and the mission to quench cinema deserts. Because cinema deserts are a horrible thing.
Yes, they are. I'm so happy to be here because honestly, 10 years ago, I started as a volunteer and it has been such a journey. But Bart, I'm smiling right now because you did such a great job at pronouncing a Haitian French word, palefaux. Most people say palefaux, so thank you so much. That was a good job.
It's great to have you here. It's good to have all of you guys here. I've known many of you for decades, and I've worked with all of you, and it makes me very happy to have you guys here today. So thank you so much. So we're going to kick off this discussion with Beth. Many people know what an executive director does. They're usually the head, the CEO. But what is the responsibilities of an artistic director?
It's a great question. I think the vision of the whole organization. So that means the combination of all of our departments. So the cinema departments, the festival departments, education departments, rentals, every part of the organization that exhibits our mission, we want them to be within the same parameters, within everybody knows what we believe in artistically. Everyone knows what the brand means and how we move that forward, whether you're a festival programmer or the scanner at a cinema, that everyone is on the same page around the mission and thinking in festival world, but also since we have cinemas in the cinema world, audiences are always like, why did you choose that film? It didn't speak to me. There were lots of other people in the audience that maybe it did really speak to. And being able to look at that umbrella of what we're choosing and make sure that, especially in the case of festival, that we're not coming down too much on one side or another, that we're really expressing a wide variety of experiences, a truly international festival, a wide variety of first-time filmmakers versus folks that have been making films for decades, short films, feature films, experimental films, romantic comedy. It's looking at that, the broadness, and somebody needs to be the step above looking at the whole of it because there's so many logistical things for people to do. And the programmers are all very gung-ho and about their own programs, but they're not seeing other people's programs and how they might work together. So within SIFF, that's what the artistic director role is. That's what I do.
Excellent. You used to be the director of programming. So how is it different than just leading the programmers?
Yeah. So when I was the director of programming, it was really the director of festival programming. So when I became the artistic director, I added in all of the cinemas in the education department as well. It's just more. But now we have Stan Shields, who is a great associate director of festival programming, and his job is to make sure that the logistics are happening, make sure that the film is sending a still and sending their film to print traffic and working with Marcom on the website and the trailer and all of those details that require so much attention. But when you're so steeped in that attention, it's really hard to be able to then also step back out and make sure that the bigger picture questions are being answered.
Got it. And so how does the artistic vision for the event inform your programming decisions or your general scheduling decisions throughout the year?
So our mission is all about creating experiences that bring people together around film, that center the theatrical experience, that film going feeling, and that provide platforms for many voices. So When I'm thinking about the artistic vision, it's really all in service to that mission. So for festivals, we'll have a different branding every year. This one is a little loosey-goosey, which is fine because we all need a little escape to the real world. Last year was our 50th, so it was all about sifting and celebration and things like that. But yet, many of our films are serious dramas about very topical subjects and really harder films because the world is a little hard right now. And those stories are coming out, and film is a great way to bring together around those stories and to create those spaces for conversation, for people seeing a film that they might not agree with, but they have questions they want to talk to other people about them and things like that. So keeping the mission always firmly in view is the way you push an artistic vision together. And the branding just drops on top of that. The branding is a doorway in, so to speak, for audiences. But once you get them in the building, that's when you have them, and that's when you want them to become part of your organization.
With that vision, how do you handle new or controversial ideas or concepts, and how do you introduce those to audiences?
Seems sometimes that's all we do. So but it's true because that is our mission. We handle it in a lot of different ways. As much as we're able to, we bring in the directors or someone from the filmmaking team so that the audience can continue to have that conversation. We encourage, especially through our membership, that those sorts of meetups. We support all of our pass holders. There's a whole group of pass holders that are the full series pass holders who have been coming together around festival for 40, almost 50 years because of those hard conversations and because of those harder films or the experiences that they'll never get to have in person. And I think right now, film is a way for the world to express their stories and express their feelings. And that can be really challenging. And, when you're introducing a film or when you're doing a Q&A with a filmmaker, or even if you're just in the lobby afterwards, when people come out and are like, why? What was it about this film? Having that kernel of, we're having this conversation and that's why. Because now we both have seen the same thing and we might think two very different things about it.
Right.
But that is actually the basis of our democracy, and the basis of our country is the ability to hold conflicting views, but still have a conversation around it. And I think that is something that film is able to do in a way that very few art forms are able to, because film has so many different levels of festival or theatrical in an audience. And then you take it and you say, okay, when it comes to streaming, then I want to watch it with my friends. I want to watch it with my family and have that discussion. And then it broadens out from there. So we're, as a festival, one stop in that path for that film.
Right. And I'm sure Paul can talk about this too, but I've always said that the job of a programmer is not just to show you the audience the stuff they want to see, but to show them the stuff that's going to challenge them. Because ultimately, those are the most engaging films of all. Those are the ones that you remember much more and you go back to occasionally in your mind going, oh, I don't agree with it, but now can see how the other side thinks about this topic, right? Now I've seen a part of the world I never would have experienced before, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that at this moment, coming to a festival and seeing films that are difficult like this is critical because people need to get together in one place and feel like this craziness, we're all in it together and we feel like we're together. And I think film festivals have a unique role at this moment as a galvanizing place for people to feel not isolated. And I think it's a really important role.
Absolutely. The idea of doubling down on bringing people together around a single experience, I know we're definitely doing it. We do have virtual available the week after the festival. But for us, it is about being in that room. It is about having that experience with the rest of the audience, which is an entirely different experience and a singular experience that will never be repeated because you'll never have that same time frame back. And I think that's the power of art, is that in that 90 minutes to 145 minutes, which is becoming more and more common, but within that time frame, you're there with those people having that experience and can be changed by that.
With this role, there's a lot of responsibility to it. What's one of the most difficult or complicated decisions you've had to make as artistic director?
What to play for opening night is because it's a really challenging slot to fill because it's the biggest film generally of the festival. And it's the one that the audience is not necessarily the ones that are bought into the whole entirety of the challenge that could be of the festival. So it can't be too challenging. But it also, I have certain expectations of myself, and I don't want to throw it away on something that doesn't challenge or engage anybody at all. So how do you find that middle ground of really accessible, yet really saying something that is also very available to you at that particular time frame for that number of people? And a couple of years ago, literally right as Russia was invading Ukraine, we decided to open with Navalny, which at the time was a really challenging decision to make. It was one of the best films of the year, borne out by the Oscars. But it was also, we're opening with a documentary. We're opening with this really politically charged figure. We're opening, and all the time I keep coming back to that mission of creating experiences around film that bring people together to have those discussions, to have that space to maybe learn something, maybe challenge something inside your own ethos. Maybe it just reflects your ethos entirely and you feel very good about yourself. All of those things can be simultaneously true.
Yeah, that's a good
For
point.
us,
I
the
always
responsibility
think
of
that
the
opening
artistic
night films,
director
as you said,
is
they're
overseeing.
fraught with lots of issues, right? Because obviously you would like to bring something in that has a little glitz to it, because it's always nice to bring a celebrity in if you can on opening night, because the pictures look much better, and because it garners your media that will hopefully carry you for the next week or so. But you also want something that's going to challenge an audience, and because it's usually in your biggest house, it has to sell a lot of tickets. So there's a lot going on in that formula. So I commend you, because I know that's a difficult tightrope to walk.
I'm walking it right now.
So what is your opening night film?
I can't tell you that part.
Oh.
I honestly don't know. And therein lies the problem.
Do you want us all to chime into what we think we should?
No.
Yeah.
You have a lot of experience here. So, Paul, first of all, many of our listeners just want me to ask you, how did you get this incredibly cool job?
Well, let me try to find the short version of this. I literally came to this work as a huge film fan, particularly of short films. And I fell in love with short films at my home original festival, the Cleveland International Film Festival. I'm one of those far too typical American raised young men who in my early 20s was still hooked on only Hollywood films. And my family had at 18 moved to Cleveland, and someone convinced me to go to the Cleveland International Film Festival to see a film called My Life as a Dog. And that film changed my life because I was like, oh, I did not know films could be this good and this different. This real. I get the term that kept coming to me was, this is real. This is a movie that feels so real. So I grabbed a program guide and discovered something called short film programs. I was like, let's see what these are. And I went, and from then on, I literally would go to every shorts program and fit in whatever features I could around it. Over the years, somebody found out what a big fan I was. I ran movie theaters at the time. So I was in the exhibition side of the film business for 15, 20 years. Ultimately ended up running the venue that the Cleveland International Film Festival was taking place in. They invited me to become a previewer. And 4 years later, when shorts programmer who had been there for 15 years left, he had learned how passionate and how many films I was willing to watch. And when they asked him who should replace him, he suggested me. He was a professor of film. I was a film. So I've been doing it ever since. It is one of the best things that ever happened to me. I love this gig. It is definitely a labor of love.
Great story and very inspirational for people who go see short film. There could be a career for you. There are many misconceptions about what a programmer does. Just sit around, watch movies all day. How hard can that be? Can you break down your job and how is it different from a screener?
Yeah, I think that is the misconception that a programmer just watches a lot of movies. I do watch a lot of movies, make no mistake about it. But I don't even consider that the main part of my job. I have been for a long time. I think the biggest part of my job is getting to know many of the artists, finding other ways to support them, helping them get their films to other festivals, because as big and successful as Cleveland is, it's just one market among so many. So I've worked hard to cultivate relationships with other programmers and spreading the love of the films that our audience and our programming team really found powerful in the various ways that Beth addressed, because we're all about. When I use the term diversity, people usually think I'm talking about what people are typically talking about, and that is included. But really, I'm talking about diversity of tone and styles of filmmaking and all the things, so that every one of my shorts programs it's like a mixtape version of film. There's never a name to any of our programs. It is Shorts Program 1, Shorts Program 2, Shorts Program 3. And our audience just knows they're going to see a comedy, they're going to see a drama, they're going to see a doc, they're going to see an animated film, they're going to see something that's a little edgy. And we literally program for the 6 to 7 beats that we want to deliver in every program. And then the diversity within those diverse beats also shows up as well. And ultimately, my biggest job as a programmer, I think, is once we've selected the films, figuring out which group of films to play together and then what order to play them in to create best experience for the audience and to give each film their true shining moment by not being butted up against something that is too similar in any way, whether tonally, topically, etc.
Paul, I'm intrigued by using the term beats, because that's, as an editor, as a director, you're talking about beats within a film. And I often think about programming a series of shorts as editing a film, which each shot is a film, and it's the same way you think about putting a story together.
It is. And I've had many filmmakers, when I describe my process and how I'm really focused on how I grab them at my first and most important thing is, how am I going to grab them at the beginning and where do I want to leave them at the end of the program? They're like,
Bingo.
Okay, you're making a film here. I'm like, using other people's films.
That's exactly it.
It's like a found footage film.
Right. We've all been to festivals in which the shorts program just as I don't understand why these films go together. And then you go to a festival in which they're programmed, in which the 8 or 9 short films, they take you on an emotional path. They start you off happy and they take you high, and then they take you low, and then take you high and low. And by the time you end, you're just like, whoa, that was a roller coaster. And that's what you want an audience to experience, because it's the same roller coaster you would see in a feature films. You ratchet up the action throughout the film. You want the same thing in a shorts program. I knew that I made it as a programmer a few years into DC Shorts when Paul SLOOP asked for my catalogs every year. And then when he programmed the same films I was programming, I'm like, I must be doing this right.
I loved going shopping at DC Shorts. It was one of the first things I changed when I became the Cleveland programmer, is that prior to me being there, we just, whatever got submitted, we picked from that what was there. And I was like, there have to be more shorts out there. We aren't doing enough outreach. And I immediately was on the road looking for things. And I did this, to be clear, my first 10 years in Cleveland, I was a volunteer. It was 10 years into the process before it grew. We had 11 programs the first year I did it. By the time they hired me, we had 33 shorts programs. They're like, yeah, it's a job now.
You get paid.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Paid.
So, Paul, the integrity of the festival is paramount. How do you ensure that you and others who select films at your events are fair, equitable, and ethical?
I think the most important part of that is carefully selecting your team in the first place, bringing them into a process where I stress all the time, I want diverse opinions on films, and I'm looking for a champion for each film. And there may be more than one of us, but there doesn't need to. If somebody is ready to go to the mats, is the term we often use for a film, that's enough passion, because there's going to be some of those people in the audience, and it may be the quote unquote lowest scoring film overall with the audience, but those 10 people who gave it a 5 out of the 5, those are the people that we programmed that film for. And those are the people that had the same life experience that caught that programmer's attention. And our team knows we're looking for diversity. We're not looking to find films that we all agree on. There will be enough of those that are just so universally strong for all the audience. Those are the easy ones. It's the first 40 or 50 films of the 150 that you're like, everyone's going to love these. It's going to play Seattle. It's going to play everywhere that it goes to. It's the next 100 that really make the character of your festival unique to the other festivals.
Great point.
Thank you. We're going to talk to Blair about hospitality. While a lot of festivals don't offer hospitality because they're very small, medium and large size festivals do. But hospitality is so much more than hotel rooms and flights. What does a hospitality coordinator actually do?
Actually, it touches every department if you think about it. Really, hospitality starts with the very first conversation, which sometimes after the programmer, it is the first impression of the festival. It's the first person who gives the official welcome and says, we're so excited that you're a part of it and you're part of our selection. And so it interacts with the box office, transportation, programming, theater operations, any kind of artistic or artist relations. It's really creating that tone for what your festival is like and creating that hospitable atmosphere. In my experience, we start with the big welcome letter and we say, this is what our festival is about. And we incorporate different elements of what parties are like and what the town is like and what should you wear and everything that the guest is going to experience, really. Yes, it's booking travel and it's assigning lodging, but it's also creating those itineraries for people. It's sometimes coordinating with the artist reps themselves, which sometimes it's getting them a little extra service, like a grooming service or a special interview off the side of the red carpet and not just the press line itself. Yeah, it's like the whole experience that the guest is going to have lands in the hands of the guest services or the filmmaker services coordinator or hospitality person. All festivals have different names for it.
Right.
Sometimes we incorporate sponsors into the mix. I know in Sonoma we do, in Round Top as well. Sometimes it's just those extra special industry guests that are coming in. Having John come into the festival is always a good time and getting that itinerary for him so that he makes sure that he brings the right shoes to go to the party and make sure he has an umbrella if it's raining and prepare the liver for a lot of wine.
So, who determines which films or filmmakers get full packages versus a la carte options or nothing at all?
Most of the time, the conversation's transferred from an artistic director or your program director. They're the ones that have that first conversation with the film team and say, we're going to bring your film in and we'd like to bring in this cast member or this specific person on the team, whether it be the director or the producer. And we're willing to provide the flight, the hotel, and whatnot. And so they'll give kind of a general framework of what's provided or offered. And then the hospitality director or the guest services coordinator will then take it over and say, you'll get this specific hotel or a hosted housing is something that we rely really heavily on because festivals don't really have huge budgets, as all of us know. And so we rely on the generosity of our community. And some of those conversations happen, the bigger offers, a lot of times with a studio film or somebody who might be an A-list celebrity flying in with a film, sometimes first-time filmmakers. So it depends on what your budget is for the festival and what that leadership wants to provide. I know in Round Top, our attendance was 87% of our films had somebody come with it. We were fortunate about that. But international film festivals aren't going to have that. You know, it's really expensive to fly somebody overseas and provide a hotel, and other cities have incredibly high hotel costs. It just depends on the size and scale of your festival, really.
I think this is a challenge for most festivals. How do you go about securing arrangements with hotels or, more importantly, homestays? Because I think that's a lot more doable.
Yeah. Homestays are fully your community relations. How ingrained in the community are you? How supportive of your locals are you? And getting the neighbors to really embrace your festival. I know, having just started a festival, that was our first mission, is to get everybody really excited on it and wanting to be a part of it in any way they could. And a lot of times they can just simply offer a room in their home or an ADU or something like that. With hotels, that more often than not lands in the development side of things, you know, negotiations with contracts and things like that. So they might get a hotel partner that's a major sponsor and they offer you a block of rooms at a discount or complimentary. If you're a really small festival, you have to do all of that as the guest services department. So you go out and you talk to these hotels about what kind of films are coming and who your attendance is. And they often will say, okay, we'll give you 2 complimentary rooms if you purchase 10 at a discount or something like that. And then giving them a benefit in return. So the hotel gets the benefit of Maybe sometimes they'll get a package of tickets or passes, and or hosted homeowners will be provided a VIP experience pass or something like that in trade for their offer of other generous contribution. Yeah, development is really crucial, I think, in the acquisition of places for people to stay. And being in small towns, it's ever more challenging.
Yeah. And homestays, I know when we used to do them at DC Shorts, that we learned after the first year, you had to go check on all these volunteers because while they were generous, you had to make sure that they actually had like a legitimate bed for a filmmaker or that their house wasn't falling apart or other issues. And so I always found that. But filmmakers loved it. I know I've stayed in dozens of people's homes over the years at homestays, and I always enjoyed it because you really, Eileen can attest to this too. They're volunteering their house. They're volunteers, and they love the festival enough to open their house to filmmakers. That's huge.
It also gives the folks a film to cheer for. Now I know a filmmaker, and you'll call up all your friends and tell them to come to the screening. Helps build community in a different kind of way.
Yeah, I think the filmmakers really enjoy it. And it's funny because from a guest services side of things, you hear the skepticism in the filmmakers when they find out that they're staying in a hosted home and they're like, is a homeowner there? And what kind of house is it? And they have all the questions that you would ask if you went to a strange place. And so we do our due diligence to find these quality places with, like you said, a bed, a real door, all of the things.
Right.
You need a bathroom, and that the host is a nice person. And so, yeah, that's our job to calm the nerves there. And then when they arrive, to make sure that they're landing in a place that we're proud of too. So we collect photos, we collect all the information and accommodations for people with, ADA, or maybe they have a service. We had this instance this year in Sonoma, a service dog, or they have a dietary restriction. And sometimes the hosts are kind enough to make breakfast and they'll accommodate that. So yeah, it's every point of that all wrapped into it.
So you recently started a new festival, which congratulations. How's that going? And how have your skills as a hospitality coordinator informed your outlook for that festival?
Yeah, it's going. First of all, thank you for mentioning that. We're going into our second year, and I think the first year is finding out all of those challenges that kind of go with hospitality first. We're in a little town of 87 residents full time. It opens up a couple times a year to 150,000 people. And the question is always, where do those people stay? Because it's a tiny town, 1 square mile. So I think the challenges of starting a new festival are finding out where are we going to put these people and how far away it is from a big city. How are they going to get there? We found out that size and scale is our biggest challenge. We want all the theaters and we have 2. So we can only grow so big. But to answer your question, yeah, having the hospitality background, I understand more of the end results and the guest experience. So it helps plan the box office experience, the check-in process, the on-the-ground logistics, the transportation, just really all the systems that would make a festival attendee enjoy the experience. And so we kind of work backwards in that capacity. And then obviously with the programming and everything, that's the other side of it. But yeah, it really helps just to understand what's going to happen when all these people show up and we have a big, festival for them. And what does that look like?
I think the key is we have 4 different professions here, and they're all very different, but they're all incredibly interrelated. And so when you go to volunteer or work at a film festival, you might start off as one job, but you're going to take those skills and parlay them into something else within that festival or at another festival, because it is also interrelated, interconnected. I've always known you as a hospitality coordinator, so now to know you as an executive director for a festival, it's, whoa, that's a whole different ball of wax. But the truth is, I know you can do it. You've done it. But it's just interesting to see how you use those skills to make it happen.
Yeah. And just to clarify, it's the executive director is our founder and she's incredible. But so I definitely leave a lot of the financials and the bigger picture. But yeah, it's been interesting going through all of those different elements of festivals in the decade that I've been in this industry, taking notes on everything and incorporating it to create the best experience we can. And I think that hospitality side of things really helps.
Great.
Eileen, volunteers are the core of any film festival, and they really are so critical and important. How do you keep all these volunteers motivated during the stay of the festival?
I'm going to start by saying that, yes, they're the core. I'll even go as far to say they're the blood life of film festivals that work closely with volunteers or that depend heavily on volunteers. And I can't tell you where I heard that line from. I just know that when I heard it, I was a volunteer and I felt so valued. I'm like, I'm the bloodlight of this festival. I
Yeah.
just volunteered for today. But to hear the ones that said that, it stayed with me for so many years. I still use that when I'm doing opening remarks at screenings. And I'll take it a step further to say a film festival without films is not a film festival. We know this. But I think that a film festival that depends on volunteers doesn't happen without volunteers. And I
Correct.
wouldn't want to even imagine a film festival without volunteers because they're so integral. For me, a film festival really starts when we start ordering shirts and when we start the signups on the platform. Okay, they're really coming. It's such an amazing feeling. And to Paul's point about programming and how you want to create a diverse slate, that you do create a diverse slate by thinking about tone and characters. And I think that's the same thing with volunteers. It's like programming humans. The only difference is you don't get to screen the film beforehand. The most you get to ask is, what is your shirt? How many hours can you stand? It's the equivalent to saying, do you have credits? And what's the TRT of this? That's all you get. And then the rest is trust. It is absolute trust at its core that you are going to represent this film festival the way that we need you to represent it. And I don't even know you from a can of paint, but I trust you. I'm going to give you the shirt and I'm going to see you and I'm going to smile at you and I'm going to walk away like a mom leaving their kid off to school. But you're still watching them from the distance. And you're like, are they holding the ballot correctly? Are they scanning? Do they need help? Should I go back? But it's this trust that you have in them. And it's the most beautiful thing. And so to answer your question about how I keep them motivated, being a volunteer, starting off as a volunteer 10 years ago, I went to every single major film festival, small film festival I could think of back in 2015. And then I made my way up to venue manager, and then I made my way up to a volunteer manager, thanks to John at AFI Docs. It was like the best experience ever. But the way that I keep them motivated is I see them. And it's the same thing as a child. Children need love and acknowledgement. They need to be seen. And I'm not saying that volunteers are children. I'm saying that we are humans and we need to be seen and valued. I've given up my day to be here. And some of them will tell you, because you have to ask, that's the first thing you say, why are you here today? Just asking that simple question, what motivated you to come here? If you start from that route versus the other way, it's really beautiful because you'll hear, I'm a film student, or you'll hear that I want to work in operations. So this is like free school for me. I don't have to pay tuition to learn right on site, which for me, when I hear that, I'm like, genius. That's the best way. That's the route that I took. But I love this one. I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to be with people. I wanted to try something new. And this popped up in my email. And this is something I'll tell you that's been coming up a lot recently is I just wanted to step outside. I wanted to get outside. I wanted to be with people. I wanted to experience something new. And that's a common thing. And you can have volunteers that are lawyers, nurses, teachers, just the gamut, right? Because they just want to be around humans, which is what Beth was saying, right? This is this experience that we're creating where it's a third space. It is the perfect third space that for whatever reason, we keep decreasing the number of this perfect church where people really need to come together and experience stories and have conversation. And so the way that I keep them motivated is asking them, what brought you here? Why are you here? Who are you? And seeing them and making sure that they feel supported and making sure that they know that I'm so genuinely happy that they're here. To me, that's at minimum is that I am so thankful to know you. And I think we don't get a lot of it. Sometimes you expect an exchange because I gave you something, you gave me something. But what I love about volunteering is that it's just literally, wow, there are still good people in this world. And so that's why I say there are film festivals that don't have volunteers. But the ones that do, for me, it's like this is film festivals at its core. It is all about community and storytelling.
And there is a kind of community. You can see the volunteers hanging out and maybe doing stuff after the festival, and it really builds. And the way that you work with them and ask them and give them that sense of validation, I think is really important. One of the things that's always bugged me is you go to a festival and there'll be something on the screen that says, thank our volunteers. And there are no volunteers in the theater at that point because they're all outside. So I'll often say, and please, as you see people, thank them. And I think a one-to-one thank you is really a great thing to do because otherwise don't think they're seen. And I think that's really important.
I'm going to say something to that. So I just wrapped working at the New York International Children's Film Festival. And I think I'm the only venue manager that does this. I actually bring volunteers into the screening.
Yes.
And I actually end my opening remarks. We'll always end with, and please silence your phones. You want to give respect to the filmmakers. But before we do that, we're going to toss some t-shirts into the crowd, and I'm going to have my volunteers help me with that. Now, generally, it's the programmers or it's the venue manager or the monitor of some sort that tosses our iconic t-shirts into the crowd. I don't do that. And basically, you're finding ways to incorporate volunteers beyond what you think they'll know. So whether it's, let's take a selfie with the audience, volunteers come. This throws them off so much. What? I'm not just going to stand as a shadow. I'm like, whoa, you're here and I see you. Or whether, like you said, have them acknowledge volunteers in the moment. And every volunteer has a different shift. So every film screening, you can, if you can't afford to, take one volunteer to be a part of your opening remarks. Take one volunteer to say, and there's our volunteer, John, right over here. Let's thank him. And it takes 2 seconds. And this memory for them will be lasting. They will be seen by a crowd at a big opening night screening. And it's just, they're seen. This is amazing. But I personally do that because, again, I was a volunteer at once. I heard somebody say, I'm the blood life. And from that moment on, I'm like, okay, they're all the blood life. And I want them to feel that when they're with me.
That's so cool. So, what skills or tasks can volunteers offer that festivals may not know that they can do?
Oh, okay. So I think this is such a great question because, like I was saying before, volunteers that come to the festival, they're from all over the place. You can have a teacher, you can have a lawyer, you can have a film student, you can have a photographer. Those are the best to me when you have someone that's like, oh yeah, I actually do video photography. So if you need to take a photo of you in the back, if there are no photographers around, they can chime in. And so I think another thing besides just their natural skills outside of the festival that they can provide, they're fresh eyes, especially if it's their first time volunteering or if they're returning. So this is how they test you. So the ones that are returning, they want to see if you've actually changed since the last year, which is exciting, right? Because if you haven't, that gets awkward. But they have patience and they have grace. And it's also a way for you to see if they are coming back and they are invested, that means that they haven't given up on you. But it's basically getting surveys right in there in the moment. How do we look on the outside? How have we evolved? Like even down to like our lines and down to the screening itself, down to our programming, hospitality. The volunteers are your eyes and ears. They're everywhere. They're surveillancing the space. And not just because they're there to critique you, it's because now they're a part of the family and they are representing it and they want it to be the best that it possibly can. So those are for the returning volunteers. But the ones that have never been there, they're just as great because they're seeing it with fresh eyes. And this is why when you're talking about motivating them, it's about acknowledging them because they can be the ones to tell you, how was that? Did that feel smooth? Was that a great screening? Like, how could we have done that differently? And also checking in with them because when you switch over, you're transitioning to the next screening, you should be leaning on them. It is okay not to have all the answers just because you're the volunteer manager, just because you're the venue manager, you're the programmer. It is okay to lean on them and say, what did that look like? How does that feel? Does anybody think we can do that better? And I think that's very important. I joke that, oh, it's like having kids and saying goodbye to them. Some of them are grown adults that have worked at other events. They know they're very capable. Film festivals are for people just as much as it is for films. So we have to be able to talk to our volunteers and lean on them and ask them, are we doing right by you? Are we doing right by the film festival? And how can we be better? It doesn't have to be that we get it perfect and it's right every single time. We are humans. And how can it ever be perfect? It's supposed to be loopy and all these amazing things. And that's why I love Seattle International Film Festival so much. You were saying like, oh yeah, we were like loopy in the 50th anniversary. I'm like, no, you always are. That's why we love SIFF. SIFF is always just doing so many amazing things. And it's just a roller coaster and you want to get on there. But with volunteers, it's let them be a part of it every step of the way.
Wow, that was exciting. So everybody who is listening to this now, who is maybe thought about being a volunteer, now will want to do this. So how do they volunteer? If somebody's thinking about, I think I should do this. What should they do?
That's another great question. And I think it's not even as hard as some people may think. For instance, if most film festivals do, I think, a pretty good job at promoting their festival, whether it's doing outreach to universities nearby or high schools, or just different sites that you can post up on Indeed. So typically you do find out through a community board. But I think also another great way is to tap into social media, tap into the website. I've been through so many film festival websites, and it's so easy because especially those that depend on volunteers, there's a clear tab on the website or a drop down, how to be a part of the family, how to join us and help us, how to be a volunteer. And you just submit your application, and most applications are pretty straightforward. Again, festivals don't want to scare people off or make it seem as if the work's going to be too demanding. So it's just as like your first name, last name, your contact, what days are you available, and what's your shirt size? And sometimes if you have a little fun with it, it could be like maybe what's your favorite film? So if you're going to the website directly to the film festival that you're interested in or curious about, or there's social media. I also find that a lot of film festivals have great social media coordinators or managers, and they're very communicative. So those are two great ways. And then finally, if you are in school, I would say check in with your student services board and see like what film festivals are happening. And another thing is sometimes being as local as possible, starting with your local film festivals. If you're in a film school, there may be a film festival happening there. Start there and work your way up.
And I've always said this, if you're a filmmaker, you should be volunteering at a film festival, not just to connect with other filmmakers, but you have the opportunity to sit there and watch all these films that you're not going to see any other way. That it's a great opportunity for you to get an idea of what else is going on there so you know what to make and what not to make.
Add to that really quickly. I think you're so right, John. Like I was saying before, it's like a tuition-free school. If you're a filmmaker, you need to understand the other side of this. Like as soon as you graduate, the goal, if you ask any filmmaker today, still the big dream is, I want my movie on the big screen. Okay, great. So you're most likely going to apply to a film festival and look around you. There's 10 or 5 film festivals that are happening in your area. You should be applying so that you know how to treat the people when you get there, how you should be treated, and you're seeing the full circle moment. So I completely agree with you, John.
And I think, again, if you can't afford to go to a festival, volunteering is a great way to work on some credits so you can see lots of films, etc. I think it's so critical. And I have to be honest with you, I always had this thing about volunteers when I started working in festivals. And then when I brought you in, I had a whole different opinion on how volunteers should be treated, etc. And I was like, what? There's the revelation. And it just completely blew my mind. And from that point on, I'm like, I love volunteers. Look at all they do. Because when they're highly motivated, they want to do the work.
And just being around them makes me feel better when the festival is going on. There's something there that just elevates my spirits.
I agree.
I'd love to add a thought here on this one.
Yeah.
And that is because everywhere I've been brought in to work at other festivals, I've brought this notion. If the festival doesn't feel like it belongs to your community and you're just taking care of it for that community, then it's not doing what it's supposed to do yet. And if there's the most direct connection to that community is people who are coming and volunteering their time to be there. They're your best salespeople, and they're the best people who make it feel like this festival belongs to these people. That's why they are the lifeblood of a festival, because they are the actual community coming to serve it for free. Best in every way, it shows how much the festival belongs to the community in which it's at.
Great point.
Yeah.
Also, they're amazing marketers for your festival. They will tell 10 of their friends about their experience, and it's just like free marketing, because if you give them a good experience, it's the same as hospitality. If you give them a good experience, they're going to champion for you, and they're going to be proud of being a part of it. And same thing with filmmakers. If they get to attend and they have a great job, the film channels and the film community conversations go so far. And so if you are providing them with a positive, rewarding, friendly opportunity and place to network, they're going to be your best asset.
Agreed. I think you guys, this is a really great dive into 4 very different positions that I think small festivals aspire to have an artistic director, right? I think a lot of filmmakers would love to be programmers, right? Hospitality is just something people don't think about, but it's so critical. And like Blair said, it starts at the very beginning and goes to the very end. And of course, as Eileen mentioned, volunteers are the lifeblood of a festival. Like they don't happen without them. And treating them well and really understanding who they are and catering to them is the key to the success. So thank you guys very much. We are going to move on to our final segment, which is questions that filmmakers ask. And because this was such a long discussion, we're only going to do 2 questions today. But I think on both of them, you guys have quite a bit to chime in on. So please feel free to. And both these questions came from Reddit, from usually the filmmaker or the film festival subreddit. I'm there all the time. I'm always fascinated by the questions they ask. And these two popped up in the past few days. I thought they were really good. The first one was, do you think it's safe to opt in for a smaller festival to give access to screeners to the press? I'm worried they might not have a strong vetting system. Bart, what do you think about giving screeners to press?
I think sometimes filmmakers are too protective and they're worried about somebody stealing their film and making all this money on it. Getting something out to press is going to help you. It's going to help the festival. And I want people to write about the work that I make, and so should you. So get it out.
The media is only going to consider the films that are given to them to begin with, right? They're not going to find your screener on the internet anyway. They rely on the festival to promote what they think is going to be covered. And so if you don't agree to do that, you're not going to get any coverage. And so why not make yourself available for that possible coverage?
The only downside to giving your film to the press is if it is your world premiere for a feature, because you are going to want to have the press see that film with the audience, not by themselves on their couch. So other than that, I think there's no downside to filmmakers making sure caveats of, is this a press person that has come to them through the festival, or is this someone who just reached out randomly from the internet? Because yeah, you can vet that. But if this is through the festival press office or that has somehow gotten in touch with you because you're in the festival, there's very little downside to that.
Festivals and festival professionals have an ethical mandate to not steal your work, and they're not going to allow others to do so either. I know I used to spend a lot of time vetting press to make sure they were legitimate press, so that the blog was actually read by more than 6 people, so that there was a reason for you to use them as a promotional tool. The truth is, no one is stealing your film, especially if you made a short. No one is stealing your film. Okay, we could just put it there. Paul, have you ever heard of someone stealing a short?
No. And I think shorts need as much visibility as they can.
But there is this anxiety that somebody will be doing that.
And I get it. You're a first time or second time filmmaker and you're protecting your baby. I get it.
It's precious.
But the truth is, all press is good. Even bad press can be spun to be good. We've all seen movie posters that says something like delectable. And they say, oh, what a great word. But you didn't read the entire phrase, which is, this is delectably horrible. You get the one word out of it, and you got what you needed out of the press. So do share if you're asked, especially if you're asked, because it means that the festival wants to promote your film for a specific reason. They know it's going to be covered. When most festivals are promoting dozens, if not hundreds of films, they know they only take a handful to the media. So if you're being asked, do it. Okay, second question, and I'm sure everyone here has something to say about this one. The subject has come up in conversation with filmmakers and friends, and I've heard film programmers discuss similar topics as well. If a festival programmer screener is watching a submission and knows within minutes the film is not a good fit, should they still finish watching the film? I've always viewed submission fees as the cost of having a film considered, but what constitutes a thorough consideration? As filmmakers, should we expect a complete view? And there's a lot to...
So, in my opinion, by somebody, yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, there's none of my festivals that they aren't going to get multiple full viewings from those screeners that we talked about. Why my job as a programmer is not as a screener. I did do that, and I never didn't finish a film when I was a screener, no matter what I thought of it any point along the way. And as a programmer, I do the same with the films that make it to me because they already passed. They already got over the bar that they were required to get over to get to me. So even if I'm not digging it in the first 5 minutes, I know many films surprise you later. Just like many of our lives start one way and finish much better. Don't give up on a film like you don't give up on a person. You just never know where it's going. Sometimes I've been pleasantly surprised by many films. So I think, yes, you should expect a viewing, but you don't think that paying a submission fee means that programming team are the ones that are going to watch your film in its entirety.
Correct. And I know for a few years at DC Shorts, we had an escape clause for screeners. If there was something they just could not watch anymore, they could mark it as, I can't watch it anymore. But that meant I had to watch it. And then I had to make that determination. And I would watch the whole thing because ultimately it's the films that, because we used to get feedback, it was the films that didn't score well. Those are the filmmakers that called that wanted the information as to why did you not like my film? And I could say, listen, I sat through all 27 minutes of this and it could have been a 6-minute film and been really fantastic, but at 27 minutes, it was not.
Yeah, to this day, I go back to all films flagged as horror films, regardless of score, just to sift through them because I found many a gem. Because we do have people who volunteer to watch those, but the team is so big and the people assigning the films can't. And they don't know for sure that they're assigning a horror film. So you could get two bad scores from people who just do not like horror films, and they ought it. And no matter how many times we put in there, score it for the type of film it is, doesn't matter. So it's the one category that I literally pull the entire list of horror films, and especially the ones that are sitting there in the middle that wouldn't make it to us. I will take a look at those films just to see, did we miss something that's really outstanding in that genre?
I remember I've screened quite a bit, and I remember my last big screening gig was actually with SIFF. It was a shorts committee, and it was during the pandemic. I think I got through just about 1,000, and I'd never watched so many shorts. And I'm telling you, I have so much respect for that team because we talked about that early on. Like, it's going to be a lot of shorts, but we expect you to watch every single one, and it's expected that we will speak about almost every single one, and they held it to that. So we watched up to as many as we possibly could. And every week we had an in-depth conversation with about 7 people. And I was like, I've never been a part of a festival that does it to this degree. Sometimes at the screening, you get a Google form, or you're maybe, you have a small group of shorts and you have a very short conversation. We had lead top programmers from across the country, a part of the short committee, even one from TIFF. And we talked about every single short out of respect. And I think when you do it like that, you have a lot more fun with it. Because now it's not just about programming for the film festival, it's about honoring the artist, the craft, and just the hard work and dedication that it took. Which goes back to what John was saying as well about when you're a volunteer, if filmmakers should become volunteers so they understand what it's like to be part of a festival. But I think it's the same thing. It's that filmmakers may need to do a little bit more work in terms of like when they're applying to festivals. Sometimes they're so quick to just spend their money. They all think, I'm going to Sundance, I'm going. And I'm like, oh, so it's a little bit of like, how are universities, colleges, how are they teaching filmmakers? And what do those programs look like? How are filmmakers doing their homework before applying? Sometimes they just don't know. They just know everything about making the film, but they don't understand the film festival process. And they end up spending a lot of money, and they end up also feeling hurt once they're not accepted. But you submitted to a film festival that was never going to program you because your film doesn't suit this package. Your film doesn't suit this program at all. But still, as screeners and as programmers, I think it's important to watch all of it. But I also even think for a film festival, I always wondered, maybe there's something that we can do to better communicate for filmmakers how they should be submitting. It's a little bit of everything. It's schools, it's filmmakers, it's festivals, helping and maybe creating better, like clearer lines in terms of communication about what it really looks like to submit. Why are you submitting? How are you submitting? Because I will say one more thing. It's like there's still some filmmakers that are submitting shorts that are like, I'm not exaggerating, like 30 minutes, 35 plus minutes. But if you were attending this film festival prior, you would know that this very package that you want to have submitted, it's only 90 minutes long, right? And typically you're seeing about 9 shorts in this package. So if we screen your short for about 30, 35 minutes, that maybe leaves room for just a few other short filmmakers. And these are things that they don't really think through. So it's all about learning and conversing about how to do this in a better way. I can't expect filmmakers to know it all because their craft is the filmmaking piece. But I find it to be really fascinating, to be honest.
So I think that the real story here is they have to have a festival strategy. And I'm actually working on a book about film festivals, not to be like the one that John did, which was really great. So I have to not do that, but to develop a strategy, like what are you doing? Why would your film work with this festival? And students don't do this, teachers don't teach it. And I think that is indeed part of the problem.
And part of that strategy is to understand how each festival is different. And so I know that I worked for many years and with Beth at the Film Festival Alliance to create this sort of, it's now called transparency program, in which volunteers can volunteer all kinds of information about their process. And part of that is to discuss how much of a film is considered a watch. What does watch mean for this festival? Maybe it means we're watching 5 minutes of a feature to make a determination. Maybe we're watching the first act. Maybe we're watching the entire thing. And that way, by publishing this information, it allows filmmakers to do some research. They have to do the research to get it. So no one's going to feed it to them. But at least they'll have an understanding of what that means. Because quite honestly, I get it. Screeners are told to watch the entire thing and they should be watching the entire thing. But when it gets to a programmer, if a programmer's watching it and going, this is not going to fit in with what we have this year, or we already have 5 films with the same topic and we already have picked the one we're going to be showing because we know that's the one that's going to be on, they can stop watching or they will stop watching. And it's not fair to a programmer to have to watch a full film knowing that they're not going to use it. Maybe they want to watch it anyway because they're going to recommend it to another festival, which a lot of us as programmers have done. We've seen many films that we cannot take ourselves, that we happily will promote to other festivals and go, this is a perfect fit for you. But it's understand it. When you pay that submission fee, your film is being watched, right? No one is not ever being watched. It never happens. Maybe it's 1 or 2 scam festivals, but that's a whole other topic. But your film is being watched and the programmers are watching what they can to make the determination that you are part of what they are looking for this year. You're part of the artistic vision. You're part of everything else. And then they can make that determination whether or not you can be programmed.
And one other thing I'll add here is start strong. Like you see a film and it starts really strong, you're going to want to watch it all the way through.
Right.
You brought me in.
Yep, I agree.
And it's not personal. When a film doesn't fit into a program, or you already have 3 of those, or in our case, there just cannot be animal death without a really clear explanation of why that's there. Our audience will not. They just will not. And so those are the kinds of things that we know that they're very hard to explain to filmmakers. It's not personal. We didn't decide to do this to you. It just didn't work for us this year in this particular sense.
Right, because 95% of the filmmakers who are submitting, you don't know anyway, so how could it possibly be personal?
Also, it has to do with the size of your festival. That was one of the challenges we faced is in Roundtop, we had so many great films and there's only so many hours in a day. And it was like, God, I want to take all of these films, but this one just isn't as strong as this other one that will resonate more with our audience. And so therefore I have to program it. But it's just, it's tough when you have limited hours.
The runtime does make a big difference. If you have similar films and one of them is 9 minutes and one of them is 18 minutes, that's a whole nother film that you could give an opportunity to a filmmaker to participate.
And the other side of that is shorter films and getting it in earlier. So if you've already locked in the film about the left-handed baseball player with whatever, and you're the first one and you've already agreed to it, that gives you an advantage.
Yep.
So shorter, turned in earlier, those are the ways to fix that.
Yep. So, well, with that, you guys have been fantastic today. Thank you so much. A huge thanks to our guests, Beth Barrett, Paul Sloop, Blair Hunt, and Eileen Level. You guys were just fantastic. Bart, what are we talking about next month?
We are going to discuss marketing and try to cover both sides of this coin, including how festivals reach out to filmmakers for submissions and how to get audiences to come and show up at their events. How filmmakers can best promote films at the film festivals to get into the festivals and what they can do once they get in. So marketing is from all different kinds of directions. We're going to have some people who really understand this, and you'll also get to know what you can do as a filmmaker to help the festival market your film. So that's what we're going to do next time.
Good. I'm looking forward to this. Before I went into the film industry, I owned a marketing company for a decade. It's incredible how much the landscape has changed, and it changes constantly. Even every year it changes. It's going to be a really good discussion. Our guests are fabulous, so I'm really looking forward to it. For everyone, remember to subscribe to Frankly Festivals at franklyfestivals.com, on Substack, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Also, send us questions at franklyfestivals.com, or we might just scrape your question from the filmmaker or festival subreddits, which is what I'm prone to do. Again, thank you to our guests, Beth Barrett, Paul Sloop, Blair Hunt, and Eileen Level, and to our incredible producer, Carrie Sheehan, who's behind the scenes, making sure we sound fantastic. And a huge thanks to you for listening and contributing to this podcast. I will leave you with these wise words as I leave every episode, though I think we discussed this a lot tonight. There is a festival for every film, but your film is not for every festival. And with that, good night and thank you.